Welcome to Monday through Sunday. I'm Logan.
I'm Sanam.
And I'm Lane. We're best friends, the founders of Blossom Brands, and the hosts of this podcast.
We can't wait to take you behind the scenes of running a 7-figure agency with our best friends.
We're sharing our mistakes, our lessons learned, and giving you tactical advice to build the career, the business, and the relationships you dream of, and a life you don't need a weekend to escape from.
So let's get balanced and let's get down to business. Welcome to the show.
Hello, guys, and welcome to this week's episode of Monday through Sunday. Coming at you live with all three of us together. I am in Dallas once again, the second time in a few weeks with a third time coming up. But I'm really excited because we finally have our podcast situation situated.
We love it. We're so excited that this is like finally coming together.
I was going to say, I feel like it's not the first time that we've said we finally have our setup set up.
Yeah,
but
we'll
this
probably
time,
No, this time it's legit.
We'll
we really
probably
mean
be
it.
saying it for the next 365 days, but that's okay. We're going to get there.
It's set up and I'm really proud of it.
How are you guys feeling today?
I am in sport mode today. I woke up exhausted.
Sport mode. That's a new one. I don't know if I've heard
it's
that.
from the Emma Chamberlain sound that went like viral on TikTok like a year or two ago. Where she's like, I'm in sport mode. I am in sport mode.
Yeah, I don't know any little TikTok trends ever. Thank
That's
you
why
for
you
making
have
me
your
aware.
millennial friend to educate you.
Yeah.
Not that you're not a millennial, but you know. I woke up feeling super exhausted and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get through all these client calls and record all of our episodes today and then just like have a personal life.
How many calls did you have this morning?
4.
Oh my goodness.
Back to back to back.
compared to my 1 and your 0. Sanam's really carrying the
No,
team.
I'm literally in sport mode today. And so what we did, ordered a Starbucks latte, got my kale and mushroom egg bites. By the way, last time we ordered kale and mushroom for me and I got your guys' egg white, which I just like wasn't as excited about. But I got my kale and mushroom egg bites today with my latte. I was energized, ready to go. And before my meetings even started, I did a lot of content on our Instagrams, which I was really excited about. Instagram's plural, and killed all of my calls. Everything was good. So I am a very happy camper today.
Confidence is high. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I'm hitting that point of like,
Oh, buckle up. We got a lot left to go.
oh,
The only thing
Best
I've
wishes.
contributed today was chauffeuring you to and from the office.
no. You did the outline for today's episode.
Oh, I did. That's right.
You also did your mothering duties to our nephew.
That's
so that's
true.
important.
Important things.
Thank you guys. Thank you for the reminder.
And he helped Logan style her outfit for that she is currently wearing.
That is
That
true.
is true. That is true.
I think that's another thing that we say. That is true.
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
We got to make a list. We got to start making our like do not say list. Top of the list is 100%.
I don't know. I think it's just like, it's our branded term now.
Yeah.
I think that we can keep saying
We
I
it.
can
only
roll
said it
with
like
it.
500 times at dinner last night.
That's fine.
It's fine.
So before we jump in today, does anybody have a personal or professional best that they want to share?
Not to hog the conversation, but I do.
Oh,
Tell
okay.
us more.
Okay, so at this point, it was 2 weeks ago
Uh-huh.
that we hosted a webinar, and it was our first time hosting a webinar
For Blossom Brands.
for Blossom Brands. We got confidence because I had hosted a breakout session at an in-person networking event in
Mhm.
Topanga.
Your first public speaking gig.
First public speaking. I don't want to call it public speaking because
It
it's like
was.
not.
No.
It was just like
Call
a
it
little
what it
breakout
is.
session.
You had a speaking engagement and it was incredibly wonderful.
It just like felt really good to get that good feedback like in person.
Yeah.
And so we decided literally 2 days later, Logan and I were on Zoom together doing our leadership TV, and we're like, okay, we should just continue the momentum and host a webinar.
Mhm.
So we planned it that day and then pushed it live, got like over 30 signups,
You killed it.
hosted it, and we got a client from it, which is like so exciting because those things are hard. They take a lot of effort.
Mhm.
You're putting yourself out there. And the fact that we got a sales call from that meeting or from that webinar, and then the sales call translated to signing on a new client
So
instantly,
quickly too, like
very
much
quickly.
quicker than our usual pipeline.
Yeah, and
I'm
I want to
very
preface
proud.
that signing a client for us is like a big deal. We don't take on very many clients. We have like a limited number that we work with at a certain time, and so we only take like high caliber clients that can afford monthly like ongoing commitments. So like we only
And they have to
work
fit
with
into our vertical.
They have to
We're
fit
really
into our
vertical.
specific about the types
so,
of brands.
Yeah, so it wasn't even just like, oh, we got someone that wanted to work with us. It was like we got someone that we were excited about,
Mhm.
that we're excited to continue working with, and
Yes.
it closed so quickly. You literally like that whole sales process, I feel like happened in a blink of an
Logan
eye.
was out of office that week. I really felt like
Yeah.
I was doing what I needed to do that week, and I'm really proud of myself.
And that's like a perfect segue into what we're talking about this week, which is how to scale your business and take it to the next level. And Sanam is literally setting the prime example of how to do that by
Everyone
putting yourself
is
out
really
there.
inflating my ego today. We need to slow it down because I cannot handle this to my ego.
It's true.
But everyone loved that episode that we did. It was our top performing episode by a mile, which speaks a lot about the types of content that the audience that you guys are looking for, which is helpful for us to know because we want to make the type of content that people are interested in hearing.
You're talking about
So if you
episode number
haven't
3.
heard
Yes.
it's episode number 3 titled How to Actually Start a Business.
Yes. And today, basically, we're expanding upon that. We're taking
How to
it to the
actually
next
scale.
level
Mhm.
and how to scale your business. So you've started your business, you've got it going, and you want to take it to the next level. So that is what today is all about.
So we're diving into the 8 tactical steps of how to scale your business as a continuation of episode 3. And without further ado, we can just dive right in. I'm going
Let's
to
do
kick
it.
this off with number 1. And number 1, I feel particularly connected to because this is something that I feel like I always like to initiate. And that is identifying your pain points and outsource. I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. And as a team, we have all discussed this for ourselves, like what we are good at and what we aren't good at. And there are so many categories of the business world that I'm just like, I don't get. This is so confusing. So accounting and taxes being one of them. Lane
Yeah.
Catherine's mind understands taxes a little bit more than I do, but at the same time, that's not how we should be using your time.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do in this case scenario is outsource. So I have found tons of talent on our team using Thumbtack. We have used Upwork, we have used LinkedIn, Indeed, we've used all of them and have had success in one way or another. But I would say for these like small part-time, like let's say 5 hours a month type of roles, Thumbtack has been extremely successful for us.
I had no idea that we've used Thumbtack for our business. I know that you've used it to like hang your Alpha Shelf closet, but I didn't know that we've used Thumbtack like to find an accountant.
You
for
can
example.
use Thumbtack for honestly anything.
Wow.
Like getting your hair done, hiring an electrician to hang a chandelier, which I did a couple of days ago, like actually anything.
We have found 2 accountants that we've used on Thumbtack.
Wow.
And it is an extremely helpful resource because you can also just connect with people, talk to people right away. It's not like Indeed where you have to schedule time to like do interviews, all of those sorts of things. Also, might I add, while we have had success with all of our contractors and most of them have been US based, we've also tapped into international markets as well. And so there are different types of levels and contractors based on your budget, different resources and skill sets. So explore all of your options, but just sharing what has worked best for us, which has been Thumbtack. Just to close it out, last year when we were submitting our taxes, our accountant just dropped the ball and decided to not finish the process. And we were in a pinch. Lane was pregnant. It was pure chaos, like code red to say the least. And so we need to
and then he held them hostage. Like he did our taxes and would not give them to us to submit to the IRS.
Lane and him were about to get in the ring for a fist fight.
I was ready to go to his house and strangle him, like no joke. Lucky for him, he moved from Dallas to Austin, so I like physically couldn't get to him.
Yeah. So Lane and I had a deal. I was like, okay, I can find like 5 accountants for you to interview in the next day. Can you just interview them? Because I don't know what the heck to ask these people. And that's what we did. Got on Thumbtack. And then I sent her like 5 emails and 5 phone numbers. Lane talked to all of them. And then we had our accountant secured the next day. Shout out Thumbtack.
Shout out Darius.
My God.
Our new
Shout out
accountant.
Darius.
This is honestly really therapeutic for me to hear that I wasn't the problem.
It was not a Logan problem.
With that accountant.
No.
You're only allowed to hate one person in your life, and he's like up there. He's up there with like maybe. Oh, you don't have that rule. I haven't told you that rule. That. Kathy, my stepmom, has always said you can only hate one person in your life. So I have about like.
Can
3.
you interchange them?
Maybe.
Yeah, could it be like a roster? Like you bring someone off the bench?
Yeah, maybe.
I just like, love the way you said this so normally and casually. Like,
oh, it's like
so
something that's ingrained in my mind.
Evil.
Yeah, I know. He really is evil.
Oh my God.
I have 3 people that I like interchange between my hate list.
Okay, but
Nathaniel's in it.
You guys, this does not reflect Thumbtack poorly on Thumbtack. Like Thumbtack is great.
Okay, moving on to the next step. Making your first full-time hire.
Scary.
The first thing I want to say about this is you are probably ready before you think you are. I feel like so many people said this to Sanam and I when we were thinking about hiring, and we were really like, I feel like we had so much mental energy on, are we ready? What do we need? Should we do it? It was such a big investment.
Scared.
We were so scared. I feel like we put it off for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So the two things that you really want to consider here are, first, what do you need? Like, what type of support do you need from a full-time hire? And second, like, what can you financially afford? And from there, you can kind of put together, okay, like, what's this role going to look like? And what's going to make the biggest impact with the budget that we do have. So those are the two things to consider. And whether it's like someone that is an account manager level that can take some of the busy work from you so you can free yourself up to doing higher level things like sales, et cetera, or is it a partner? Do you need someone else at your level? So these are all things to consider at this stage. One thing that we did not do right off the bat, but I think with your first hire would be a great thing to consider, is including within any contract a 90-day intro period for that employee. This means that like after 90 days, you're going to have an evaluation with them. And then you haven't not necessarily just an out, but a time period to be like, is this paying off the way that I had hoped? Are we both meeting expectations? So there's a lot of things to consider. It's a very scary step, but I want to encourage you that once you do it, it literally changes the game.
It helps you grow faster.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask, did you guys wait until after you were already like matching your corporate salary and then had the money? Like, what was your barometer like financially when you decided to make like your first like full-time hire?
It was 3 years ago. I honestly don't remember exactly where we were, but we were at the point where we were definitely outpacing what we were making previously.
Okay.
I would say that for certain, right, Sanam? Yeah. I don't remember where we were, but our first hire was an account manager 3 years ago. Shout out to Shyla. I'm sorry. Now she's an account manager. She's still with us.
Yeah.
Shout out Shyla.
I also just want to add, Lane, that there have been multiple times when we've made hiring rounds where we've hired 2 people at the same time, which has helped us ramp up the onboarding process versus 1 month hire one person, the next month hire another. It just makes it easier when 2 people are in the same boat because you're doing the marketing collateral one time, you're doing the trainings one time. So just something to consider if it is a possibility.
And for us, when we did finally make the jump to hire people at the coordinator level that could take some of the client level work, that freed Sanam and I up a lot. And we were able to take on a lot more clients in general because we had the resources and the hands to be able to help with the client work. And from there, we then within a year got to the point where we were financially at the point where we could bring on another partner. And that's when Logan came on and joined us. So Logan was obviously our first higher level.
She's expensive.
Higher level employee that is a third partner to us now. But we couldn't have gotten to the point where we could have financially afforded that if we didn't first start with more coordinators, people to just help us with the workload and be able to grow the amount of clients we're working with at a time.
Point.
Yeah. And I will say that's very widely applicable, but I would say especially for anybody in a service-based business, at the end of the day, your finite resource is time. So the way that you can make more money with a service-based business is multiplying your time. And the way you multiply your time is by having more people working for you. And so with that moves on to our next point, which is all about investing in your team. So you've hired those key early employees. You know that the potential is there, and you're just looking to nurture that potential as you scale and grow as individuals and as a collective. And training your team is so colossally important. I can't emphasize enough. And I also want to be honest that training people is really hard. I think this is something that isn't talked about a lot. You kind of think, oh, once I train somebody, I get to just like walk in the park. It doesn't work like that. Training
never
somebody
stops.
Takes so much time, and it also never stops. Great point. And at first, to be honest, when you're training somebody, you're doubling your workload because instead of you just doing something you know how to do, you're telling somebody how to do it. Then you're checking to see if they did it right. Then you're making sure that it goes out the door. So you're doubling or tripling your time to do that one task right there. So I would say at the beginning, it's really easy to not want to delegate and want to do things yourself until you have this expectation that somebody's gonna be able to do it perfectly on their own. But that's never gonna be the reality. You have to invest the time to teach somebody. And I think that goes in 3 steps. First, you show them how to do something like, hey, and I think one of our main training processes is just hopping on Zoom and being like, hey, I'm working on this right now. Have you seen somebody do this before? Let me show you how. And so step 1 is show them how to do it. Then once they've seen it once, then you let them put their hands on the keyboard and you're going to shadow them. So you watch them, they have that constant feedback and support, but they're the ones pressing the button and getting that muscle memory. And then step 3, once you've showed them, shadowed them, then you allow them to do it on their own. And that's when you either provide feedback after the fact or check their work, etc. And frankly, going through all 3 of those steps for every single task you would normally do on your own is really burdensome. But I will say, once you reach that point that you have trained somebody to do something perfectly, exactly the way you would have done it yourself, there is no greater feeling than being like, wow, this got done. It got done beautifully. And I wasn't the one that physically had to do it, because in the meantime, you did so many other things and you were able to move the needle in different directions. So I think training people is really hard and it takes a lot of time. But I will say, from having done it multiple times, it's really rewarding when you see somebody that you've invested so much into begin to thrive and blossom and really just become such a rock star at what they do. And then secondly, once you watch them train other people and hear some of your lessons kind of echoed back through the grapevine, like, it's just really cool. So I think my takeaways in terms of training is learn to delegate. I used to be really selfish and be like, oh, I just rather do it myself, so it's right. The thing is, nobody can do it exactly the way you want it unless you're specific. So be specific is my next tip on that. I think nobody knows exactly the way you want it done unless you specify. You're not being annoying. You're not being difficult. You're just telling it how it should be. And you probably have a reason.
And that really comes into play in the third step that you talked about. So show them, shadow them, and then let them do it and check their work. I think that for me is the easiest. That last part where they do it and then you check it over is the easiest part to really skip over an important part, which is to not just, once you're checking it over, making the changes that you need to make. If you just make them and don't tell them why you're changing certain things and what you're changing, and you send it off to the client without taking that extra step to be like, okay, I changed X, Y, and Z, and I did this because of X, Y, and Z. So then in the future, they know to actually take that into consideration, which I think when you're in a hurry and you're like, you got to get something out the door, you got to move on to the next task,
which
it can be really easy to skip that step. We all have definitely gotten to habits of being like, oh shoot, we're not doing that. We catch ourselves being like, I haven't been doing that as well. So I would say that is a very, very important piece of the puzzle.
I agree completely. And I think if somebody doesn't know why something is done a certain way or why you're doing something that you're doing, they're never going to learn. And that's something that's always been really important to me, is to explain why. And you don't just like say it and think that they get it. You also ask them to repeat it back to you. And it's the repetition and it takes time. But when you have somebody who is putting forth the effort and is smart and capable, it's just a matter of time. So I think just definitely patience is key with this one.
For sure.
Your employees will only be as good as you train them to be, even if they're coming in at a high level, even if they're a manager, a senior manager level. Every company does things differently, and you can't just expect people to like know the way that you operate if you want them to do it in a certain way.
Yep.
All right. So moving on to the next one, this is to refine your processes and your workflows. So this is applied to both internally across your team and externally with your clients. So the first point here is effective team communication. For us, we are 100% remote. So making sure that our team has effective communication within each other and that we are all collaborating on a day-to-day basis is crucial. One way that we do this is through Slack. Our team is on Slack. We have, how many would you say?
Oh my gosh.
We probably have 40 different Slack channels.
Yeah, easily.
One for each client, one with our actual client team for the client, and then just our internal team for the client. Every different category of things we talk about, we have a channel just to keep everything super organized. There are a lot of ways you can manage your Slack channel across your team. And I would say making it organized and also trying to keep as much communication within your team on public Slack channels so everybody can stay in the loop versus one-offs. So if I have something to say to Sanam and Logan that's about one of our clients, I won't just send them a Slack directly to them. I will put it in the client channel and tag them so that the rest of the team can see what the three of us are working on and how it applies to what they're working on. So that's one tip for Slack. And then the biggest, I think, game changer for our business in terms of effective communication was getting our clients onto Slack with us through Slack Connect channels. This has eliminated our need to be emailing clients ever. We really don't email clients. We get everybody onto Slack Connect and we are just messaging back and forth all day. It makes everything so much more streamlined and so much more efficient.
And I will say I was really skeptical of this at first because my brain immediately went to, oh my gosh, I don't want a client to be able to access me 24/7 and like expect a reply.
Yeah.
So I was like very against it and very like, well, email their rules. Like people don't really email you after hours. But the lack of formality that you can have over Slack or another like instant message medium compared to email really saves time. And I'm somebody who I care how my emails are. Like I will spend way too long on emails. And so I will say I was really skeptical. So if you're listening to this and you feel the same, I promise the more informal and frequent you can communicate with your clients eliminates the need for those like larger conversations and meetings, which if you heard our last episode, you know how I feel about long meetings.
Yes. And that actually perfectly segues into the next part of the refine your processes and workflows, which is efficient scheduling. We have a full episode that just was released last week on managing your calendar and time hacking your calendar. But I'd say that at this point, when you're scaling your business, it is so important that you are consistently making your schedule as efficient as possible. So from a client perspective, this is how often do you want to be speaking to your clients? For us, it's every other week. We've found that's the sweet spot for maximizing everybody's time. And then, so do you want them biweekly? Do you want them weekly? Do you want them monthly? Also, do you want to talk to all your clients on the same day? Or do you want to have one each day? Like whatever is best for you, test different things, figure out what works. And then same thing goes for internal. What do you want your teams? Obviously use Slack or something like that you can be communicating all the time, but what do you want the frequency of full team meetings or one-on-ones with managers and coordinators or direct reports? What do you want that to look like? I would say that again, like you shouldn't set it and forget it. This is something that like each month you should analyze what worked last month. What are we spending too much time doing that we don't really need to be doing? What should we spend more time doing? And we don't have one way that always works. Sometimes we're like, we need to be focusing more on sales right now. Our pipeline is a little bit smaller. So why don't we figure out how our schedule this next month can accommodate that? So I'd say just be critical of your calendar, be critical of how you're spending your time, and don't just do it the way that you always have because you already have something set.
Agreed. You've done a really good job of constantly rejiggering our schedule.
I like to. It brings me joy.
It brings Logan and I joy.
Our current schedule is probably the longest we've stuck with a certain thing.
Yeah.
So chalk it up to 15-minute meetings.
I was literally about to go the other day, adjust our holiday call schedule. It was already done. I did it before maternity leave.
I love planning out a full year of schedules based off of holidays and things like that.
Makes life so much easier, especially for people on the receiving end.
Yeah. Meanwhile, me on Friday, I'm like, oh, Monday's a holiday. That's awesome.
Literally same. Okay. And I'll take us into our next one, which is growing your personal brand. So this is twofold. The first one is actually how your brand is presented online in terms of like the aesthetic, the branding, the website. So we created our own branding ages ago, like over 5 years ago. And boy,
by
have
our own
things
branding,
changed.
by our own branding, I want to specify that was me in Microsoft Word, probably like typing Blossom and typing brands below it and testing different fonts and taking a screenshot of it.
Yeah.
So, yep.
And then doing our own website based off of Lane's screenshot logo from Microsoft Word. We've definitely come a long way. But this year, at the beginning of the year, the three of us decided where we really wanted to invest in our brand and reintroduce produce our brand in a way that actually represents us. So we hired a creative agency to go through the entire process of doing that, from our brand ethos to our brand presentation, brand colors. There were so many decisions that went through this. And obviously us working on the paid side of things, we don't know what goes into the creative side of things, of building a business from scratch in terms of the presentation, and going through that process was incredibly eye-opening. There's a lot that goes into like the curves on your logo and everything that of how you're presented online, which translates to how people interpret your business to be before they even have a conversation with you. So keep that in mind, because initially when we were going through our rebrand ourselves and thinking that we didn't need to hire an agency, we got very playful with the colors. Some of the feedback we got is maybe this is not as serious as you want to be portrayed. So there's a lot that goes into it. Keep that in mind, because that really ties into how people are digesting your brand and what bucket they place your brand into before they have that conversation. You want to make sure that you are being categorized properly again before you can enter the conversation.
And I would also add that it's really important to have something that you feel really damn proud to put out there. I think before, like, our branding was fine, but it didn't like get me excited. And now when I see our branding, I'm like, this is cool. This is badass. And I feel like it's been easier as we have started to do more internal marketing efforts, because before all of our clients came from referrals. Like we had never like actively sought out clients. And obviously we're doing this podcast now. Like we wouldn't be putting ourselves out there if we weren't proud of what we're doing. So I really think that confidence has stemmed from us investing in a brand and a vision that we're really excited about.
Dare I say 100%?
You might.
Next thing that Logan kind of just spoke to is social media strategy and putting yourself out there. So this is one thing that we are doing now that I'm trying to spearhead from the Blossom brand side of things. And
not trying, you're spearheading it.
We're not there yet. I would say we're still in the trying phase, because we're still figuring out all the bells and whistles that goes into it. But there's a lot that goes into it. And we have this conversation with all of our clients all the time. As a brand founder or anyone working on the brand team, you should be putting yourself out there. You should be putting your face out there, because we're in a different stage of digesting marketing and media. People want to see the humanized side of things. People don't just want to see the pretty stylized photo shoots, presentations that you see online. Like they want to understand the face, what your values are, how you present yourself. All of it goes into your personal brand and also your business brand.
People like to support people.
Yes.
People don't as much care to support companies, but people like to support other people, especially with people with shared mission and values to their own.
And now the trend on TikTok is that like brands have like their marketing managers take over their entire TikTok account to show their day-to-days, their own personality, all that goes into the brand. Again, outside of just that pretty brand TikTok ad that you would see.
Yeah. I feel like part of a job description now is like, will you put yourself out there on social media for my company? And now you really have to do that. And earlier this year, we just had a reality check. We were like, we need to take our own advice that we give to every brand that we talk to, that in a sales process, we always say, you need to put your face in front of the camera. Nobody cares about looking at your products. They want to see who's creating the products. So it's obviously, it's scary at first. Anything new, it takes a while to build up your confidence and have it not be scary. But it's just practice and repetition. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get.
I've explained this analogy to many people many a times, but you're just essentially crawling up this hill of cringe until you reach the top. And then you just got to keep cruising. If you stop, you have to crawl back up that hill again, because then you're going to fall right back down. And it's like running. Like,
so does the cringe end once you reach the top?
The cringe ends because you just keep ripping the Band-Aid off. Like, I remember when I was first posting on TikTok, oh my God, you guys remember the anxiety I would have. Like I would hate it. I would use like 80 filters on my face to make sure every TikTok was perfect. And then of course, the first TikTok that I ever had go viral was when I filmed after my personal training session. So I was sweaty. I was disgusting. 300,000 views later, here we are. But honestly, you get used to it. You get over it. People will comment. People will see it. Yes, Sally from high school will make a comment to Jenny from PE class, whatever. Like, honestly, everyone's putting themselves out there. And like, it's so badass that you have a business, that you are trying to put educational content out there. Like, so many people have come out of the woodwork, people that I haven't spoken to in like 12 years, either asking for marketing advice or sharing a comment about something that they heard or got value from one of my posts. And so ultimately,
it ends up being rewarding.
It really does. So that is my advice when it comes to putting your personal brand out there. Is just keep ripping the Band-Aid off. Run, not crawl up that hill of cringe, because it will get you further. I promise you.
So where would you say we are currently on the hill?
I mean, I feel like once you stop like giving me a face whenever I bring out the camera in front of your face, that's when I know that like you're higher up on that hill.
Okay, so I think maybe the three of us all have different hills. You're much higher on your hill than maybe Lane and I are.
Yeah. Last night when you're like, I really love you for filming this video, I was like, this is for us.
She just whips out the mini mics at dinner. I'm like, can I order my martini first, please?
I know. I'm just like trying to incorporate it any second I can because
no, I love it.
Literally the amount of content that you need is just like unlimited for any business.
We appreciate it.
We're just trying to get as much as we can over here.
And one thing I will add to your point, I think going back to, kind of the feedback and not caring what other people think about you, I will say I have noticed your cheerleaders are really loud and your naysayers are really quiet because they're saying it behind your back. So I will say it has been so rewarding to get that feedback from those cheerleaders. And that's really what's at the forefront. And anybody who's a naysayer, you don't know what they're thinking anyway. You can only assume, and who cares?
Truly, I can honestly guarantee that they'd be wanting to have the confidence to do the exact same thing you're doing. I also want to add on that cheerleader note, when I was doing that webinar and I was really excited that 30 people signed up, but only like 4 people were watching live. Like one of them was our other employee. Logan was cheering me on the entire time. And like anytime I would make a comment about like my ego or like just being sad or stressed or confused, like, I'm like, no, we're not dealing with that. Do you realize you did this, and this? Like just constantly trying to uplift me. And that was a huge cheerleader moment. I know I've told you this like probably 8,000 times, but like that day really stuck with me. So just
and
FYI.
Look what we got out of that day, a client.
Look what we got out of it.
And you never would have known it at the time that you were freaking out, but little did you know you were feeding our pipeline.
I know. It's so unnecessary to freak out. It happens every time.
We all
it's
do
such
it,
a waste of time.
It is waste of energy, but I think, like you said, it's a ripping the Band-Aid thing off. That was your first webinar. It's totally rational.
We did talk about that
you were freaked out about it.
Yeah.
But
whereas like if I posted a TikTok with 2 views, it wouldn't affect me like it would have in the past because I've done it so many times now.
Right.
But the webinar thing was the very first time. And that was the first time we ripped that Band-Aid off. So like I'm at that bottom of that hill of cringe.
And scaling your business is all about ripping off Band-Aids like one after another. Yes. Honestly.
It's so tiring.
Okay, well, on that note, moving on to our next step. So you are starting to put yourself out there. Your processes are really firing on all cylinders. You have the right team in place. And now it's time to make money, honey. We need to make sure that we are milking our pipeline for all it's worth. And what I mean by that is valuing yourselves appropriately. I think when you're first starting out, there's a time and place to be conservative with your pricing and to make sure that you're approachable. And frankly, your skill level is probably matched to lower caliber clients at that point in your journey. But once you've been in business for several years, it's time to raise your prices because ultimately the service you are providing, again, if you're in a service-based business, is higher than the service you were providing, let's say 5 years ago. And so for us, I think this is something that for a while, we just had a set fee. That was just our client fee in our brain. We never really questioned it. And I don't know what made us start to question it, but there was just a point where we're like, oh, let's try to quote $500 higher. Let's try to quote $1,000 higher and just like see what they say.
Yeah.
And we were shocked, I think initially, that we went from like what was our original baseline fee and we crept up pretty consistently.
We are 7 times higher than our baseline fee right now.
7 times?
7 times higher.
That's amazing. And what that means is we can have more revenue per client, which means we can give better quality work to the clients that we have because we're not spreading ourselves too thin. Like Lane said, we only take on a set amount of clients, but as our team grows, our operating costs have grown too. So we need that set amount of clients to work harder for us. And we also want to work harder for them because we have more skills that we can offer them.
Yeah.
So I will say, while you think it might sound great for you to close every sales call that you pitch, I would argue the opposite. If your close rate is 100%, your prices are too low.
That's what I was just going to say.
That is a sure sign that you are undervaluing the work that you're providing.
That's a good way to think about it. I never thought about that.
Yeah. I don't know where I got that from.
I like it.
Probably my dad.
Okay.
But that's just the immediate sign your prices are too low. I think it's something like a 50% close rate means you're priced right.
Yeah.
So if it's 100%, your price too low. If it's 10%, your price too high, which we have also fallen into that trap before. I think we got a lot of yeses as we were increasing our prices.
Yeah.
And then eventually we hit a wall where we were getting all these no's from clients that normally would have fallen squarely within our niche that we like really thought would have been the slam dunk. And then that's when we kind of took a moment and we were like, okay, I think we were starting to alienate our initial customer base that came to us because we were offering prestige digital marketing services at approachable prices for up and coming founder-based brands. And so we realized we were kind of alienating that customer base and scaled back. And honestly, we're in a better place for it. So I do think it's not too hot, not too cold type of situation.
You got to keep testing, throwing things out there, seeing what sticks, find the happy medium, and it's going to continually evolve and change. One thing that I would say, since we actually have started charging more per client, the level of service we're able to provide, not just like the level of like quality of work, but also the different types of things we're able to include within our packages has made our partnerships with our clients so much stronger. Now we do content, we do email, we do creators.
We're more successful.
Yeah, we're more successful and we keep those clients longer. So yes, they're paying us more. It's more of an investment for them, but the return of what they're getting for the investment makes it more of a valuable partnership to them. And in return, we have a longer standing relationship that really puts us and them in a better position.
So true.
And the last thing I would add to that with what Lane mentioned about adding on services, you don't know what services your clients want to see from you unless you ask. So I think asking for feedback is a huge part of this. And this is something we implemented if a client and us ever decided to part ways. Like if a client goes a different direction, we send them a survey and we're like, why are you going a different direction? Like, is there anything you would have liked to see differently? And what we also do is if we are having a sales call and somebody ghosts us, we're like, hey, like, we realize you don't want to work together, but can you let us know like where we fell short or just where we not even fall short? Like, cause it's not always us being the problem. It's just maybe they were looking for something different.
And one time about maybe a year plus ago, we created a survey and sent it to all of our existing clients. And it was just like, what else would you prefer us to offer? What else would you like to see us offer in the future? And we took that list and started acting on it. We were like, okay, a lot of people would like us to be able to do email automation. Let's figure out how we can offer that. So your clients are going to be the biggest testament of what you should be doing. So ask them.
And it was a double win because we got to use the good feedback to put on our website and as the testimonial section.
There you go.
Which saved us so many referral introductions for the sales process.
That's
and I
true.
will say, you don't want to diversify yourself to death. You definitely want to keep a clear vision of what is your core skill set. So like for us, paid media is always going to be our bread and butter. So we don't want to diversify and try to offer everything under the sun because that dilutes your core product. So the services that we have added on, we've done so very strategically to make sure they're things that directly fall in line with making our paid media efforts more successful because that's what we're known for in the industry. So I will say, add on, diversify, upsells are great, but never lose your true north when it comes to what service and what value you're providing to clients.
Yeah, like know where you draw the line. For us, organic social, we will never do. There's certain things where we're like, that's not worth the time investment, that we know that wouldn't make us stronger. It would make us weaker with our core offerings. So identify what those are and what they aren't.
I was on a sales call last week and the client contact literally asked me straight up, you have a lot of offerings. So what is your bread and butter? Like, what are you known for? And it was important to have a very clear answer in that scenario. And I knew exactly what to say. This is our bread and butter. All of these are supplementary to what our bread and butter is. And this is how long we've been doing this for. So again, ties back into making sure you're aware of what your core is. All right, guys. Well, that'll take us right into our second to last one, which is number 7, grow your network. I feel like this has been the ethos of my life since I moved to LA over 2 years ago. And it's been really fun, both doing it virtually and in person. I cannot emphasize the importance enough of growing your network because even if someone that you meet on the street doesn't directly need what you do or isn't directly tied to what you do, it will come in handy at some point or another. I have met people at so many events that are not just industry related. Like when I just go out and about at social events in LA, whether it's to meet new people, a singles event, like whatever. I have been to so many different types of events and I have exchanged contact information with a million different people at these types of events. And when I tell you, it's all come back around at different points. I didn't tell you guys, but someone I met at that networking event where I hosted a breakout, she was in my breakout and she introduced me to a publication that just reached out to me to do an interview.
Oh, no way.
And I didn't even ask her to do that. she just like sent me a note. She's like, I recommended you for this because I think you're great. And I was like, well, that was so kind.
That's so kind.
And it just goes to show, like, you never know what can happen when you make these connections and like what your services will tie into their services or whatever, maybe even if they're not congruent. Ultimately, like, people can help people in different ways. Everyone has their own network. And the more you connect with people, the more you realize how small the world is.
What you've done a really good job of is building relationships with people within the industry, not just connecting at network events with other people that are offering likewise services or things of that nature. You're building real relationships and connecting yourself with other people that are in service-based industries or that are within our target market of brands, like beauty brands, things like that. And you're getting to know them and you're like investing in the relationship with them, not just trying to like get something from them, exchanging business cards and like, oh, if you ever need these services, let me know. You're like, why don't we get coffee and just talk about our pain points and, you know, understand a little bit more about each other's businesses because it'll be mutually beneficial.
100%. Getting to know what people do and then also making introductions to other people in your network. I think it's like such a cool feeling when you make connection and introductory emails. It's like, wow, my network is so big that I've like built myself. Now I can start introducing this person to this person and like grow this web and mix it all. It's just like a very satisfying feeling. But I also want to give a little piece of advice to anyone in college that's listening that doesn't have their own business, but is still interested in potentially having a business one day or even just a career. Always keep connections with the people you meet in internships. You never know where these people will go in their careers and how it can follow you back up. Like, I have asked for help from so many people that I used to intern with in the past or even work with. And these people that you're meeting are people that you're going to grow with in your career and your network, and everyone will come back. I can guarantee it. So don't burn bridges, make connections, and you, again, will be reminded of how small the world is. Like, think of how like that person that I interned with at Southwest Airlines, how she's come in handy so many times for our business since we've been doing our relaunch. I kept in contact with her. And so that's my recommendation to all the young gals out there and guys.
I love that. And
That's
you're
a good
just
point.
like genuine enjoyment of that connection. Like, you're such a community builder. It really comes across.
Thank you.
And it's just, I think, one of your most admirable qualities.
Oh my God, thanks.
I remember when you first moved to LA, that was like something that was a really big goal of yours. You were like, I really want to get connected within the industry.
I wrote it in My Good Life.
Really?
Yeah.
You've really lived that out in a very admirable way. And it's authentic. You're not doing it like for the sake of our business. You're doing it because you genuinely want to and enjoy it.
Thanks, guys. I love people.
You are welcome. Okay, then the last one here is, honestly, we're giving ourselves this advice today, is to create a board. This is something that we've gotten a lot of recommendations from our mentors that would be a good thing for us to do. We still have not to this day done it, but if you listened to our last episode on how to start a business, we said find mentors. That's really important when you're getting started. At this stage, when you're scaling your business, turn your mentors into a board. Find ways to incentivize them to give you feedback on how you can scale your business better. They'll think of things that you won't. So it is you can create mutually beneficial relationships with your mentors. Give them something, incentivize them in some way to be part of the board. And that is a very, very effective way to figure out how you can scale your business in ways that you wouldn't organically think of.
And if there are any holes that you're not identifying yourself.
So maybe one day we'll do that, gals.
But luckily, we've gotten a lot of free advice from people in our network because they are our family. So shout out, family. Thank you for all the free advice. All right, guys. Well, that was super productive. I hope it was really helpful. This was so fun to share all of our tips on how to actually scale up our business to the next level. These are all tips and tricks that we've gained from experience.
And one thing I would just want to say is I think any of these topics, any of these 8 tips could be their own episode. We could dive into any of these like for a full 30 to 45 minutes. So if there's anything you guys want to hear more of, if there's a certain topic that you're like, oh, I want to know more about how to do that, let us know, comment on our latest Instagram, and we will definitely add that to our list.
And also, similar to our part 1, how to start a business, we added a free downloadable to the show notes. So we'll do the same thing for this one. We'll include these 8 tips to how to scale your business in the show notes so that you guys can easily reference it back. And like Lean said, we're here to be a resource, so feel free to reach out.
Last but not least, our action item of the day is to attend an event in your city where you don't know anyone and you go by yourself. And if you're in LA, I recommend you follow the Instagram account, Camber app, because I have found most of my events that I attend through that Instagram account, and I have met so many friends through these events, whether or not they translate to just my social life, my business life, my work life, whatever it may be, my dating life. It all comes back around. So highly recommend attending an event where you don't know a single person.
And tag us in your Instagram story that you post from said event and let us know if you make any new friends or what you got out of it.
And even if you don't make any new friends, it's for the plot. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Monday through Sunday. If you're building a career, a business, or any relationships, we know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us.
With that in mind, we would be so grateful if you can spare 2 minutes to rate and review this podcast. Your reviews help spread the message to more people that work doesn't have to suck.
By the way, if you're looking for your community, join us on Instagram and TikTok at Monday through Sunday Pod. We're all about connecting our like-minded listeners together. Let us know if there's anything you want us to talk about by sending us a DM. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you again, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.